And Mark, among many of the items being considered by the Maryland General Assembly is one I want to point out, given how controversial this topic was in the last election. State legislators are looking to expand the mail-in ballot and the drop box program that was implemented during the last election cycle. What do you know about this proposal?
I think one of the real concerns about it is there are a variety of ways to do it. So some states have allowed for what is called ballot harvesting, where third parties go and get the ballots, and that can be a problem. The other issue is that lots of people are held on the board of election rolls well after they've moved, well after they've stopped voting. I can, personal knowledge can say my son keeps get information from the Board of Elections. It arrives even though he's moved to Colorado years ago. So it would be really important to clean up the lists with people who haven't voted for a while, so that you didn't have this threat of people who were not really voters, who were not participating, having their ballots intercepted from some nefarious process. I think there'd be a lot more comfort if you had that kind of cleansing of the rolls to prevent the prospect of fraud.
So, but I have a technical question for you, Mark. Are the mail-in ballots treated like provisional ballots so that they're counted at the very end, as opposed to early voting that's done at the ballot polling places and on day voting?
Now, I don't know if it was a waiver, but in this election in Maryland, I should say the presidential election, the board started early counting those votes as they came in, because they frankly recognized they were going to have a huge number of ballots and they didn't want to take a protracted period of time to do that. Now, I don't know if that was done as a waiver or that is standard practice. It probably makes sense to be able to continue to do that. One of the issues that you do have with the mail-in ballots, this is not without complication, is signatures change over time. And so the problem is the board will see a signature card and they'll look at a ballot and they're completely different. And as a result, there is a process called curing it, just to verify that the ballot was in fact from the person intended. That can create a whole series of problems, because if the person doesn't get notified, then their ballot won't count, or do you go ahead and let the ballot go through even though the signatures don't match up? So there's some real challenges there to work through it. If you begin counting earlier, then you're in a better position to be able to go through a process of verifying that the signatures are okay. That's why, in some respects, voting in person, you at least have a better assurance that those kinds of problems won't take place.
Cynthia, there are other states, Georgia in particular, which had its own controversy with mail-in balloting, and they're considering proposals requiring boosting of identification rules for mail-in voters, requiring absentee ballot drop boxes to be located inside polling places, and outlawing early voting on Sundays. Are these ideas that should be considered?
No. Maryland voters had the experience in the primary and the general election of ease of voting. 1 million Maryland voters dropped ballots into ballot boxes. 50% of Maryland voters requested mail-in ballots. You cannot put this genie back in the bottle. And Maryland voters are asking for that continued ease of voting. And the movement now is to build on the success of the last election, and to, in addition, something that's new in Maryland is to improve the ballot access for students as well as members of the military. Members of the military would be able to apply for or register to vote online. So the movement in Maryland is to improve on the experience of 2020 and to
it's not just
keep the access and improve access.
The integrity of the election. We need to have some regulations in place to make sure the election.
But we had no serious problems in Maryland.
That we know of.
You don't trust Jim Shattuck?
Well, but that's actually, don't put it on Jim Shalek. I mean, the issue is there are ways in which the process can be circumvented. That's why there are controls. There are issues with, again, doing this signature verification as I described. So, as you go down this road, you got to think through some of the challenges that will need to be addressed.
But I did not hear serious problems about massive numbers of people needing to have their ballots cured.
In other states, it was a much bigger
Not in
problem.
Maryland.
No,
Not
I
in
understand
Maryland.
that, but in other states where there was, and I can't speak to how it was done in Maryland, but where you have systems where you're really looking at signatures.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. We got to wrap this up. When we come back from this short break, should beer and wine be sold in grocery stores? And a split decision to allow solar farms in the agricultural reserve. Stay tuned for more of 21 This Week when we come back from this short break.
More people live in Montgomery County than in Wyoming, Vermont, North Dakota, and even DC. We are a big county with a lot of stories. Subscribe to our channel and don't miss any of the important news happening in our community.